Welcome to the Teachers on Fire podcast, where I profile agents of growth and transformation in education today. Each guest shares their highs, their lows, their passions, their goals, and the resources that are shaping their thinking and inspiring their practice. For show notes and links from each episode, visit teachersonfire.net. You can also follow the show at Teachers on Fire on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And of course, please subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm your host, Tim Cavey. Let's meet today's guest. Today, I'm speaking with Dr. Will Deyamport III. Dr. Will is an EdTech specialist, a documentary producer, and the producer and host of The Dr. Will Show, a podcast that we'll be getting into here in a few minutes. Follow Dr. Will on Twitter at I am Dr. Will and visit his site at the Dr. Will Show podcast.simplecast.com. Dr. Will, thanks so much for coming on the show today. Are you ready to talk education?
Thanks for bringing me on, Tim. Yes.
Well, we've been connected for some time on Voxer, and that's been a lot of fun. It's been great to hear your what up, and cheery good mornings. And now we're talking live, and so this is a real treat. So glad to have you here today. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit more about your current context in education? What does that look like for you on a daily basis?
I'm an instructional technologist for a K through 12 school district where I work with teachers in understanding the shifts needed to teach our mobile generation of learners. I also do writing for EdTech publications. I do the occasional consulting gig at a school district, and I am starting to do webinars for companies. And as you mentioned, I released my first documentary, and we have finished the interviews for the sequel to it.
Well, that's super exciting. I look forward to hearing more about that and what else you're bringing to the conversation. But first of all, Dr. Will, it is story time. So if you don't mind, share with us about a low moment or a challenging experience of adversity that you've faced somewhere in your education career and describe how you overcame it.
A couple of years ago, I was just, we as a department, the tech department in our district, we have a Slack group where throughout the day we're communicating with each other, asking questions, sharing information, sort of things like that. And, the occasional, hey, have you seen this, that. So I was on there and I told one of my colleagues, I said, hey, man, I'm coming over to see you so we can finalize our training for the 2-week boot camp. The then tech director said, hey, before you do that, I got to talk to y'all. And I was like, oh, my goodness, what is this? That doesn't sound good. So he met us at one of the schools and told us that there was some budgeting issues and that we may not have a job. And I'm like, oh, and I was ticked off, man, because this was, a week, 2 weeks before school was ending. What you didn't know, what your budget was before 2 weeks before school was out. Getting that news that your job may not be there is one thing, but at the time I found out was extra, because I didn't feel like I had enough time to find another job in the school district that late. So I was really not happy. I was really angry at that. And, a bunch of emotions sort of flooded me, man. I was just not in a good space. And I went home. And mind you, before I left, all of the work that needed to be done, I did it. The warranties for the Chromebooks that need to be done and sent out, I did all of that stuff before I left. Now, in my mind, I didn't have a job. I even turned in the Chromebook, iPad, laptop that the district issued me. I turned them into my boss because I was done, right? I was like, I don't have a job anymore. I'm moving on. Here it is. But I still did my Chromebook warranties. Didn't have to, but I did them because no one will ever expect more of me than I expected myself. So I did it. And I went home, went about my business, and maybe a week before ISTE, my boss called me up and said, the job is yours if you want it. All right. So a decision was made that they only had money for one person. So mind you, because of budget issues, we had gone from 3 to 2. Now with budget issues, you're saying we're going from 2 to 1. And my colleague, he went and got an AP position at another school district. And then, like I said, about a week before ISTE, I got the call. The job is yours if you want it. And I went to ISTE that year in Chicago. And so it was a very low moment for me. And I carried that hurt, that disappointment, what I thought was disrespect. I carried that into the following school year. I still did my job, but I did it with a different mindset, right? It wasn't, we're family. It was, I am a business of one, right? So I'm going to do my job and do my job well because I have to show up. I got to show out, right? It's not, I'm on this mission of the collective, but I'm on the mission of myself. And so I stood literally in a dark place until I met one of the teachers. I had a conversation with a teacher at the school district, and she wasn't liking some things and was going through her own stuff. And then she said something to me that resonated with me, that shook me. And she was talking about how the district didn't give her a job. God gave her the job. Oh, wow. Like that's a different, like they hit me because, with my faith, it is our belief that everything that happens in our lives is the will of God. So while I was getting upset at the school district for what was happening, it was supposed to happen, right? It was supposed to happen. Everything that transpired was supposed to happen. And I lost focus of that. I lost focus of the bigger spiritual plan that was in the works. And I'm not saying that after this revelation, I became like a whole new different person, but it did give me a different perspective on it. And that's how I started to come out of the resentment. And still, I came back last year, but I had a different mindset again because I was interviewed for another school district. I was hired for that school district, and I actually went back to mine and said, what are your plans for me? Because I just got hired somewhere. And so when I was told that I would be coming back, then I tell them, I'll turn the other job down. But it was just a different mindset for me, right? It was one of more liberating, I guess. I'm still working on my spiritual path and practices, but I can say that I don't have those ill feelings anymore towards what happened.
Awesome. Well, one of the things I take away there, Dr. Will, is that even when your back was up against the wall, you kept to the high road. And as you put it, no one holds you to a higher standard than you do yourself. And I love the fact that you continue to act with integrity, right? And in fact, even more so, you finished the job with the Chromebooks, you returned all of your laptops, which I feel like I probably wouldn't do in that situation. I'd be like, no, you come and tell me that I lost my job. But you sort of dotted your I's, crossed your T's, and made sure that you were in a good place, good standing with the district. So that call obviously it must have come as a relief. And I'm so glad that you did keep that position. Well, Dr. Will, yesterday on Instagram, I noticed that you shared the fact that you were just recognized as an amazing educator. So let's celebrate that for a moment. Tell us about the backstory. How did you earn that recognition?
Honestly, I don't know, but I think it was due to the work that I've been doing with, I got moved this year to curriculum and instruction. So I'm no longer with the tech department, but I still work with them very closely because of what my job entails. And my supervisor mentioned how I answer her calls. I do the work promptly, even after the hours set upon, the contract, because folks know how I am about my money, right? So I'm not, I'm not one of those people that, believes in working themselves to the bone when a check not coming. So I have a limit on, don't call me past this time. Don't expect me to work past this time sort of mentality. But with my boss, I like working for her. And, if she calls me, I got her. So there have been things that I've been doing, she's called. And again, I answer the phone. I don't ignore it. And when she asks for something, I make sure that it gets done. And part of it is, she's good people and she's always, been supportive. And another part of it is, if I can do the work well, focus on it and get it out of the way, it's something that I don't have to worry about. So I'm assuming that it's been because of that type of work that I was recognized. Now, I'm going to tell you, I was shocked because, every Friday, everyone in curriculum and instruction shows up to the boss's office to pick up the certificates and the candy bar that we all, take a stack of, and we drive, go to the different schools throughout the district to hand them out to the teachers who've been awarded the certificate, give them the candy. We take a picture and the picture, goes out via social media. So I was shocked that I got one. As soon as I walked through the door, someone said, "Hey, you're an amazing educator." I was like, okay. And so I got the certificate, took a picture of it. And then later, someone took a picture of me, of course. And then later on, I took a selfie of myself and then I put it out there. But I was definitely shocked. I wasn't expecting it.
Well, shout out to your boss for the affirmation. It's always helpful to be recognized for the work that we're doing. And that just fits so nicely with our last discussion about your low experience, your challenging experience, about the fact that you kept to the high road. And I happen to know how productive you are in all of the spaces you reside in. And we're going to get more into some of those here. So, Dr. Will, you have now published over 300 episodes of the Dr. Will Show podcast. Could you talk about the focus of your show for those who maybe haven't come across the Dr. Will Show? What can educators expect to learn when they tune in?
Well, the podcast, which I call, the tagline is the mobile university for edupreneurs. I focus on personal development, entrepreneurship, and edupreneurship. And edupreneurship is when an educator creates an education-focused business. That's the focus. I'm going to start bringing in some online learning stuff, but I'm not going to veer too far away from the core of what the show is. But I created the show at first to create content to bolster my brand so that I could get more consulting gigs. But then I got bored talking about, blended learning. I got bored talking about technology integration because I had done, you mentioned of the 300 episodes, but the vast majority of those episodes were those other shows. And I just got bored of it. I'm like, I do that work every day. I come home, I have these same conversations on Twitter, and there's something bigger that I want to talk about. That's when I decided that I was done. It was time for me to have those bigger conversations because I believe as teachers, as educators, that we are, like everyone else, a full, realized human being. And I wanted to tap into that other side of who we are, not just the classroom piece, but as a fully realized human being, how do you become a better person? How do you tap into your purpose? How do you realize the talents that you have can be monetized to bring in multiple streams of income? And so that's where the path my podcast is on now.
Well, it's a show I've enjoyed many times, and I think we're going to come back to it shortly, but I want to stick with that theme of monetization. You've also produced a documentary called The Edupreneur, Making the Impact and the Income, and I love that tagline, Making the Impact and the Income, because I think that really summarizes your message, that we can serve people, we can help and support education, we can help and support learning in the classroom and derive some income from that. So in the documentary, you focus on a number of authors, speakers, and well-known names in education who do offer great value to other educators and actually do earn an income while doing so. Talk about your message to educators. What would you say to those teachers who maybe work hard to share content but are uncomfortable with the idea of charging money from it?
Get over it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that it's simple for me to say it, and I understand that there is an emotional journey a lot of us need to go on, and a mental shift in now charging for what I do. But here's the thing: as an educator,
When you go on Teacher Pay Teachers and you buy that lesson plan, you're spending money on it. When you're spending money on pencils, paper, maybe you go into your own pocket and buy a Chromebook for your classroom, you're already spending money for goods and services already on other stuff. So you understand what that means. There's nothing wrong with you, again, yourself reaping the benefits of your on talents. I don't tell anyone what to charge, right? So if you wanted to, you could have like a very low base price. But what I am saying is understand your value. Understand the genius that you have, the fact that you've gone to school and you have this master's degree or this specialist degree, that you are a Google innovator or you're a Microsoft person or Seesaw or Bunsy or whatever, these ambassadors people have now, these specialists. You have this special expertise, this recipe that you have developed. You have people in your school district who are saying, Miss Johnson, how are you working with John? John is a tornado in my room, but he's so great in yours. You're being recognized by other people in your school district. You're presenting at conferences. Other people are seeing that secret sauce that you have that you may not even think is special because that's just what you do. Monetize that, reap the benefits of it. One, I believe the first reason I tell people to do it, because I really do think that we need to get over this mindset of free, 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 free. I don't mind some free, but you need to get into a fee. You need to get over that mindset of everything needs to be free. Let's just get over that. But number two, we know what our salaries are, generally speaking, right? I was talking to someone who had my job in New Jersey, and when she told me she made $96,000, I was like, "Wow!" In my mind, like, you're making double what I make, but I don't live where it could cost me $3,500 for an apartment. So our salaries are pretty much the same. When you put in cost of living, we're averaging about $35,000-$40,000. That's not a lot of money to say you want to take care of yourself and a family. And guess what? Your child may need some dental work. Your child, you want them to go to activities. You may want to have a family vacation. Other things come up in life, and you want to be able to afford those things and still be able to put away savings, et cetera, et cetera. And that's hard to do on our salaries. So creating multiple streams of income is a great way for you to bring in that income to supplement what you're doing as an educator, right? And you're doing what you love to do. So if you writing that book, or you're presenting at those conferences, or you're delivering webinars, or designing a course, you're doing what you love to do, what you went to school to do, what you are passionate about doing, and you are at the same time that you're making that positive impact, creating a greater classroom for yourself. You're able to make those multiple streams of income to help supplement what you're bringing in from the school district that will allow you to take care of yourself and your family. And third thing is, these school districts ain't loyal. I don't say that to throw shade on anyone, but the reality is a school district is a business. You might not look at it as a business, but it's a business. And if they don't have funding for your position, you could be gone, right? We know someone in our podcast group who's now driving to another state to teach because his position, because of budget, was eliminated. So that's the reality we live in. Your position could be eliminated, or the school district could come in and say, well, we don't have a certain amount of money. So I'm sorry, you may have been making $50,000, but you might now be making 45. Now, if you budgeting your life off of the 50, what are you going to do with the 5,000 that's missing? So that's one of the things I want us to understand, that this game of money, financial literacy, this affects us. And so, just get over the free. Do some free, because I believe in that, in the giving. But, you do some free, fee. Let's get some money coming.
Right. I like that. Well, I'm a firm believer in the idea that, as we see everywhere else in our economy, that it's possible to have a win-win transaction. It's possible to have win-win experiences where one party brings value into the marketplace that is, in many cases, desperately sought by, party B. And so when great teachers, as you say, and great educators have solutions to problems that others are facing, why not charge something reasonable? Why not derive a little bit of income? After all of these solutions, all of these, whether it's workshops or books or other resources, they all take time. So it only makes sense to earn a little bit of compensation for that hard work. So I want to stick sort of related to this theme. Something else I see in common, obviously, between the two of us, Dr. Will, is that we both consider podcasting a passion. Neither of us are sponsored at this time. And so we're not deriving income directly from the podcast that we're making. But we've overcome the fear of the sound of our own voice. I don't know if that was ever a fear for you, but I think it is for a lot of people, that it's an awkward experience at first, hearing yourself on the airwaves, as it were. But we've gained so much learning and new professional relationships as a result of this podcasting business. I'm sure you would agree with that. So what would you say to educators who maybe they're out there gladly consuming content, whether it's in blog form, video form, podcasts? They would gladly consume content made by other educators, but they feel like they don't have anything themselves to add to the discussion. What would you say to them?
I say to them that they have to. Everyone is a brand. And I know that educators, a lot of them don't feel that way. I've been in many of the discussions on Twitter about people who say, hey, I'm not a business. I'm not a brand. I don't know what this branding, what you're talking about. And they're conflating branding with marketing. They're trying to say, hey, man, I don't have a logo. I'm not selling anything. I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, cool. That may be true. And you may be an educator who never wants to become an entrepreneur, but you're still a brand. Your brand is just your reputation. Your brand is your value add that you bring to an individual, to an organization, what you bring to the world. We live in a world where you can Google almost anything, right? So you can have a colleague Google you to see who you are. There are school districts who for sure will Google you, whether it's during the hiring process or, someone may say, oh, Miss Johnson, let me see what Miss Johnson is up to. Or you can meet someone and you may go, I like this person. I may want to get to know this person on a personal level. And you Google them before you decide to move forward. You want to see if this person crazy or not. So, you know what I'm saying? But because of that Google thing and what comes up, all of that works into your brand, right? So that's why I say everyone is a brand. Now, in order to shape the narrative of who you are, what you believe in, what you bring to the table, that is where creating content comes in. Because if you do not create content, then you are beholden to whatever someone else puts out there. So if you are somewhere where, you're at a social gathering and you have decided to enjoy beverages, where you have to be a certain age to purchase, and your friends, everyone, you're taking selfies and pictures and all those things. Now, if they're posting those, but you're not posting content, when people start to do the Google search, guess what's going to come up first, right? When you're on vacation and you're at a school gathering, whatever, when you are not creating content, whatever is hitting online is something that you have no control over. That could be good or bad. But when you create the content, so you have your blog, you have your podcast, you have your vlog, you have your YouTube channel, whatever you are doing to create that content, that now starts to create the narrative again of who you are, what you believe in, what you bring to the table, what is your value add to another individual, to an organization, and to the community. So that's why you must create content, so that when that Google search is done, that content that pops up is content that you have had a hand in creating.
So good. So good. Shape the narrative or others will shape it for you. And it's that idea of shifting from passive to active. And it's the same message that I pass on to my learners, in terms of digital footprint. Get out there and actually define that digital footprint. Let the world know what it is that you're all about. And as you mentioned earlier, we're expendable sometimes within our district, within our school building. And we need to let people know what we are about so that when push comes to shove and we do have to look elsewhere, when either the district tells us to move on or life pushes us maybe into another direction, that we do have options open to us because we've taken the time, we've done the work to explain what it is we're all about. So I love what you have to say about shaping the narrative, Dr. Will, and I so agree. As you look across your PLN and your own professional practice, what else is setting you on fire in education today? Is there another issue that you are passionate about right now?
Well, in education, I'm all about online learning. I love online learning. I'm loving entrepreneurial thinking in the classroom and financial literacy. Those are the things that I'm trying to see where I fit in, quite honestly, because I love them, so much. We have students that, our education system is really built upon people going to work for somebody else and not going out creating opportunities for themselves and their families. So that is one thing I think in K through 12 and higher ed, we need to do a better job at preparing students, exposing them to entrepreneurship, financial literacy, understanding how this money game is played, and not only at, this basic level of, checking and savings, but at the next level of ownership and investment. And then with the online learning piece, I mean, the access that online learning allows you to have. I mean, can you imagine a school district in Alabama being able to take a class from a teacher in China and being exposed to not only this individual and their knowledge, but the culture that this person can bring in and give them access to what the country has to offer? That is, for me, when you want to talk about a classroom without walls, which is the name of a show from Dr. Ai Zong. She has a great live show. But the fact that, Friedman back in the day wrote this book called The World is Flat. And it was basically because, with technology happening, the world is coming a smaller place. And so with online learning, I just think that because of the access it brings, it is one of those things that it keeps tugging on me. And I've gotten 2 certifications and I'm trying to get more, and I'm trying to make that part of my expertise. One of the difficult things about my job is that I'm a Swiss Army knife, right? I have to do so many things all the time, is that I'm a generalist. But in order for me to get to that next level, I have to have a specialty that I can hang my hat on. And so that whole online learning and entrepreneurial thinking, bringing in online learning, that's where I'm trying to go.
I love it. I love it so much. Teachers need to remember a lot of our learners will never have a boss, right? They'll be operating and quite successful in the gig economy of the 21st century. They'll be independent contractors and it'll be all about the skills that they bring. And so that's a mindset shift for teachers, especially. I think teachers have a bit of a bias toward this idea of you've got to have a boss, you've got to find a job. But from everything I'm hearing from you, you're preparing students to have a little bit more of a progressive, a little bit more of a visionary mindset about their futures. And I love that. So let's talk about your professional certification. How are you looking to grow professionally and improve your practice in this coming year? Do you have your eyes set on a particular professional goal? You talked about developing more courses. Is that really what you've got in the crosshairs right now?
Well, definitely for our school district, yes. It is something that the superintendent wants to do, is create a online academy for our school district. And that has long been something that I've wanted to do, because I have courses that I've created already in Schoology, but I wanted to create a online university for our school district. One, because with turnover, what happens is that that teacher's genius, their expertise, their knowledge, their experience leaves with them. And normally what happens with school districts is when those veteran teachers leave, you end up hiring new folk. And the new folk, they can be great, right? Literally, they could be superstars out of their school districts, but they don't have anything. Like, they don't have the resources. They don't have the experience. They may have the knowledge, but they're lacking what that other teacher brought to the table. And so in having that online academy, that university that the superintendent wants to have, and what I definitely share my belief in, is being able to have those courses, being able to put in webinars, video exemplars, recordings of teachers actually teaching and putting that in, and having teachers give testimonials and maybe some vlogs, right? Of, when you come in, when this happens in the classroom, think about this, imparting that sort of wisdom that not only other teachers in the district can benefit from right now, but teachers that come behind them have access to. That's what I'm trying to do, is to create an agile learning organization.
Amazing. It's the way the world is going. And I just finished a master's degree with the help of a classmate in Australia who was giving me feedback on my papers in real time. And I think, the globe is shrinking in a sense very rapidly. And it's exciting to think about, as you said, let's share the expertise, or as George Couros likes to say, let's make great learning go viral. And one of the ways we can do it is through these online course platforms. Well, outside of education, Dr. Will, I like to ask this question and sort of pull back the covers on the whole person. So what's another area of learning for you outside of education? What is it that ignites your passions when you leave the school building and brings you alive as a human being?
I like learning about entrepreneurship and personal development. Every day I start my morning out in my office. I put it on YouTube and I'll watch videos that deal with personal development and entrepreneurship. And I really like learning about Black people and their history, culture, contributions, I guess, to Islam. So those will be the two areas where I would say that I really enjoy learning outside of what I do for a living.
Very cool. And share about a personal habit or a productivity hack that contributes to your success, Dr. Will. How do you get it all done?
I don't do a to-do list. I just do it. So I don't know if it makes sense or not.
So you just move on whatever is pressing you or giving you the most anxiety at the moment.
Yes, because, there's been a lot of research that says multitasking isn't productive at all. So I don't even think about it, and I don't think about the to-do list because I don't want to create the pressure of, oh my gosh, I got these 5 things I got to do. Every day when I get to work, I have an idea of, okay, you're going to be doing troubleshooting on some sites. You're going to be creating accounts. You're going to be doing email password resets. So I know every day going in, this is what the job is going to do. But then when I have things on my schedule in terms of trainings, when I'm in my training, I'm in my training. When other things sort of come through my email, I take care of those then, because I want to get it done. And I want people to go, Dr. Will ain't playing. Like, when I ask for something, it gets done. So I jump on it, get it done, get it out of the way. And when my boss calls, everything else is dropped. She is a priority. And then I get back to what I was doing.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. We know that the to-do list, one of the problems with the traditional to-do list is they're never ending, right? They just grow and grow and grow. And so I like that idea of just get it done. Well, just before we head into our quick picks, Dr. Will, I do want to share an important message from our friends at the Teach Better team. Are you looking to reach more students, innovate your instruction, and teach better? Then join the Teach Better team on November 8th and 9th in Northeast Ohio for the first ever Teach Better conference. Join dynamic educators such as Dave Burgess, Taltal Thompson, Adam Welcome, and more. Register now at teachbetterconference.com, and when you do, be sure to use discount code FIRE50 to save $50 on either of the 2-day registration options. Are you ready to be better? Well, all right, Dr. Will, it's time for your quick picks, the education voices and resources that are shaping your practice and inspiring your thinking today. So starting at Twitter, tell us about someone there we should follow and share why they've been inspiring you lately.
Sarah, the teacher, Dr. Sarah Thomas, she is on it, man. I mean, she's an instructional technologist, coach. She presents all over the country, has been outside of the United States, founder of EduMatch and EduMatch Publishing. She is just an all-around boss. So I would always tell people to follow her because of the knowledge that she has. She's been adjunct teaching as well. And she also is a great amplifier and cheerleader of other people's voices and what they're doing. So I would say that would be the first educator to follow.
Absolutely love Sarah Thomas, and make sure you catch her in episode 66 on Teachers on Fire. Next, Dr. Will, point us to an EdTech tool that you currently love using somewhere in your practice, or maybe one that you see being used to great effect in the classrooms in your district.
I love Zoom and other video conferencing tools, but Zoom is my go-to because once you have that pro account, which I know all teachers may not want to pay for, but it allows you to record webinars that not only can you put into your Google Classroom or put on YouTube for your students or put into your learning management system, but you can bring the world into your classroom. Like we've all heard of, Mystery Skype and those tools where kids can ask yes or no questions to determine the location of another class. But think about the access you can give your students to. So if you're talking about you're in elementary school and you're talking about animals or you're reading a book on animals, you may not be able to pack up all your kids and take them to a zoo, but you could always via Zoom or Google Hangouts or Skype bring in a zookeeper to your class and have your students see animals and in a different type of context and have them speak to him or her about their experiences and have them drop their knowledge, right? So I want to give a quick sort of anecdote about this. My wife was doing a career unit with her students. My wife teaches gifted. Her students did a hangout with Dr. Laura Wilson. Now, my wife didn't tell them it was Dr. Laura Wilson. She said it was going to be Dr. Wilson. She asked them, who do you think Dr. Wilson would be? They said white male, right? Now, her kids are mostly kids of color. When the video pops up and now it's Dr. Laura Wilson who's running this cancer lab, that paints a different picture of what is possible. And so, yes, her students are learning about what does it mean to run a cancer lab? What does a cancer lab look like? What is a scientist? But now they see that scientist is a Black woman. So now that expands, right? Because I truly believe that you cannot be what you cannot see. And so when her students are seeing that, now that starts to shape their narrative of what is possible. So I always love, again, these virtual conference tools. Zoom is my favorite. That because you can actually bring the world into your classroom.
Well, that's a great challenge for me as a classroom teacher, so thank you for that push or that gentle nudge, Dr. Will. Next, recommend a book, maybe one that you've been reading lately or one of your all-time favorites, and tell us why you recommend it.
The all-time favorite book written by man is The Autobiography of Malcolm X. Just a powerful book for me. Reading about Malcolm X was sort of my first introduction to Islam. And when I got a hold of his book my freshman year in school, I just read it. I read the whole book in a day and a half. And it was such a powerful experience in reading about his life, his journey, his faith, his work. And it's just hard to explain, when you read something, that grabs you and takes a hold of you and won't let go, and then leaves you with something that you go, wow. Like I got to get my together. You know what I'm saying? Like that's one of those books that, and I read that book over 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago. And it's still like my favorite.
Incredible. Well, I have not read the book. I have seen the movie, and that was a powerful, compelling performance by Denzel, if I remember correctly. But that's a good reminder for me to get into the actual book and find out more about his Malcolm X's story. I have a theory, Dr. Will, that every podcast producer is a fan first. So tell us about one other podcast that you tune into that you really appreciate and learn from.
Wow, that's a lot. I love listening to business podcasts. So Sunny Lenarduzzi has a great podcast where she, drops a bunch of knowledge. Jasmine Star just dropped her first podcast. I really like listening to podcasts that talks about, you living a greater, bigger, fuller life, and podcasts that talk about how can you monetize, your own special genius. So definitely, we're talking about, sometimes I'll pop a Pat Flynn in, but normally, it's something like a Sunny Lenarduzzi There's a great one. If you're an educator and you want to listen to something about education, I recommend you listening to the 8 Black Hands podcast. It's 4 Black men educators, and they talk about their belief in educating Black and brown children and their ideas and their gripes about public education.
Okay, I will definitely check that out. And all of these resources will be dropped in the show notes there at teachersonfire.net. So make sure you drop on by and take a look at what Dr. Will is recommending. And I'm happy to say that Sunny is from my neck of the woods out here on the Pacific Northwest coast. And so it's amazing how our worlds are not so big, right, Dr. Will? 2 more questions, both relating to video. You mentioned actually popping into YouTube as part of your morning routine, just looking for inspiration each day. You must have a favorite channel. What's your first stop on YouTube?
Gotta be, I already mentioned her, but Sunny is a great show to watch. I also like watching Vanessa Lau. I think she's in Canada as well. And then, Jasmine Star brings a lot of great gems to me as well. So in the morning, and my wife is one of those people that literally she can hear the alarm, get up, and get moving. And I'm not like that, right? I got to get up and get myself together, right? Get me a cup of coffee, a tea. Let me watch something on YouTube to get me hyped, to get me pumped, to get my mindset ready to be excellent. And then I get ready. And my wife is like, you take too long. But I just can't just get out of bed and, oh my gosh. I guess I could if I woke up and I go, oh man, I got 30 minutes to get somewhere. But when I get up and I have to get my mindset right in order to be out, because when your mindset is not focused, when you're on that rush to leave, you have that uneasy feeling, right? Like something isn't right. And I don't want to go to work like that. So I want to be at peace. I want to leave the house chill and ready to put the work in. So I definitely love listening, watching Sunny videos and again, Vanessa Lau, Jasmine Star. So those will be the top 3 YouTube channels I watch in the morning.
All right. Well, as my buddy CJ Reynolds in Philly says, you're starting the day on offense, not defense. And I appreciate that. Last question, Dr. Will. I know you're a movie guy. We've had some laughs about that on Voxer. What are you watching on Netflix right now? What's the last great thing you've seen there?
The last thing I really watched was Raising Dion. So it's a TV series about a celestial event happening and everyone there got powers. And then a couple of people passed on powers to their children. And then what happens next is a lot of compelling drama. And what was cool about this is the protagonist, Dion, is a, Black male elementary age child. So it was, again, I love the representation. Representation for me means a lot, but to see this being a well put together show, and it had the superhero thing, which I love. It was a great series. I watched it all in one day.
Awesome recommendation. Thank you for that. Dr. Will, what are the best ways for the listeners to follow you and get in touch with the podcast, check out your documentary, and connect with everything else you're putting out there right now?
Well, on Twitter, I am Dr. Will. That is where I pretty much frequent in terms of my social media game. I love engaging in conversation with people and sharing resources. You can also go to Simplecast, Dr. Will Show, simplecast.com and check out my latest episodes. The documentary can be found on Amazon Prime as well as Vimeo. And I hope you check it out and be on the lookout for the Edupreneurship 2. And this one will focus on, it'll be a lot more granular, and it'll focus on how do you know when you're ready to become an entrepreneur, to finding your target market, to finding out what you bring to the game, how to market your stuff, how to incorporate, get your IEIN number. So it's a lot more focused, I guess, on you becoming an entrepreneur. What does that look like? So be on the lookout for that, and, holler at me. I'm real cool on the social media. Some people like, Will, oh, no, doctor. And I said, no, Will is fine. As long as doctor in the check, that's all that matters.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Will, for bringing great value to our show today. It's been a pleasure, as I said at the top, to connect with you on Voxer and by other means, and of course, listen to your podcast. And now to have you here and to just hear your thoughts in real time has been a real treat for me. So thank you again for fitting me in on very short notice and with a very busy day ahead of you. I am so deeply grateful. Take care, and let's talk again soon.
Excellent. Thank you for bringing me on.
Thanks so much for joining me today here on the Teachers on Fire podcast. For show notes and links from this episode, visit teachersonfire.net. You can also follow the show at Teachers on Fire on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And again, please do subscribe to the show wherever you are listening right now. Before we sign off today, I'd like to share highlights from around the Teachers on Fire community this week. First of all, I'd like to thank all those who encourage and support the podcast on Twitter, where the podcast passed the 4,000 followers mark this week. Very exciting. Bonnie Neves at Biology Goddess tweeted, "Some people are pure genius. Today I learned that at Tech Chef for You is one of those people. Thank you for another inspiring morning commute at Teachers on Fire." Well, thank you for that, Bonnie. And of course, at Tech Chef for You is Lisa Johnson, my last guest on the show, so make sure you catch that episode. Next, Julie Smith at JG Techie Teacher tweeted to my last guest, Lisa Johnson at Tech Chef for You. "Thank you so much for the shout out. I enjoyed listening. Lots of great info." Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Teachers on Fire. I hope you remain a listener. Janelle McLaughlin at MS_Mac4 tweeted, "Thank you at Tech Chef for You for the practical tips. I always feel like I don't have time to be both productive and creative. So inspired." At Teachers on Fire. Well, thank you for that, Janelle. Your support means so much. Next, the great Jake Miller at Jake Miller Tech tweeted, "Just finished listening to the episode of at Teachers on Fire. Thanks for the hashtag EduDuctTape shout out at Mama Wolf Tattoo." And Jake pointed to episode 84 of Teachers on Fire featuring Jennifer Wolf, "Loving Fiercely, Teaching Audaciously, Thinking Deeply." Make sure you catch that episode with Jennifer Wolf, another educator who, by the way, is doing some podcasting right there in her classroom. Very, very cool. Next up, Brian Carpenter at Brian Carr tweeted, hashtag Fresh Air at 5 was really serious. 100% probability of precipitation. I got at it today, 5.4 kilometers. And of course, Brian's referring to his daily Fresh Air at 5, his daily walk around the neighborhood as he gets his exercise and listens to podcasts. Back to his tweet. He says, "Enjoyed the inspiring story of at Tech Chef for You, episode 103 at Teachers on Fire. Lisa, I've been a fan of your work since 2015. Thank you for braving the interweb to share your resources and learning. Hashtag balance LAP." Well, Brian, you've been connected to Lisa a lot longer than I have, so that is lucky for you. And I, of course, am now a big fan of Lisa's work. Thank you so much for the encouragement. Bonnie, Julie, Janelle, Jake, and Brian, you were the fuel to my fire on Twitter this week. And to all who have liked, retweeted, replied, read, viewed, or otherwise engaged with the podcast on Twitter, thank you so, so much. Twitter really is my go-to home throughout the week. Educators, I also want to invite you to stop on by the Teachers on Fire magazine on Medium. This week we featured a piece by Tammy Breitweiser at TLBREIT on Twitter. She published Just Breathe, a third grade class helped me heal. In it, Tammy writes about how some simple breathing exercises with a class of littles helped not just her learners, but it helped her relax and gain perspective as well. Very interesting piece. Well, if you're wondering where the Teachers on Fire magazine can be found, it is a Medium publication, and you'll find it on medium.com or on the Medium app. If you're already an education blogger, consider joining our growing writing team there. You can continue to publish content on your own blog, and you keep full credit and ownership of your content on Medium. Message me at Teachers on Fire on any social media platform for more details. If you enjoy education blogs, also check out the Teacher Blogs podcast, a podcast for teachers who have more time to listen to blog posts than to read them. The mission of this podcast is to amplify the voices of education writers that are seen, read, but need to be heard. This week featured episode 33 from Lynn Thomas, and she can be found on Twitter at TomLynn101. Lynn continues her reflective journey through the alphabet by reading a piece called M is for Mindset. Here is a short quote. What mindset do we have as a teacher? As a person? What is our prime focus, our motivation? How deeply do we truly explore our own mindset? Our mindset can't be merely surface-level nods to the appropriate response of, quote, I believe in growth mindset, end quote, or whatever the latest trend may be, because what we truly believe will always reveal itself and be reflected, no matter how much we like to think we can cover it up, end quote. So awesome piece from Lynn. She is such a thoughtful writer. Make sure you take a listen. And of course, again, the Teacher Blogs podcast features education writers reading their own posts in their voice. And your voice could be next. All you need to do is use your phone's voice memo app to record yourself reading your own blog post. Then use the share button on your phone to email the voice file to teacherblogspodcast@gmail.com. If you've written a blog post that you'd like me to consider featuring there, please message me at teacher_blogs on Twitter. Well, I'll leave you with this quote from my reading, Teachers on Fire. This one comes from a book called Launch, Using Design Thinking to Boost Creativity and Bring Out the Maker in Every Student by A.J. Giuliani and John Spencer. And they write, quote, innovation is risky in a culture that values compliance over creativity. And I'll read that one more time. Innovation is risky in a culture that values compliance over creativity, end quote. So I think a good question to ask ourselves is, what does the culture of my classroom reward? How about the culture of our school? Are we communicating to students that we truly value creativity over compliance, or is it the other way around? Great book. Make sure you check out Launch, Using Design Thinking to Boost Creativity and Bring Out the Maker in Every Student. Again, I'm your host, Tim Cavey, and I'm so grateful that you decided to spend some of your day listening to this podcast. I hope that in some way the content you heard today from Dr. Will ignited your thinking and inspired your practice. And I'll meet you next week right here on the Teachers on Fire podcast. Take care and have a great week.